If you want to lower your risk of a cancer recurrence by 59%, then this video is for you. The number one thing that you can do to lower your risk of your cancer coming back is targeted exercise. What's targeted exercise? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to show you in this video, step by step. Now look, if you're finding it tough to find the motivation to get back to exercising or working out after cancer, that is totally normal. You're not alone. This is not your fault. But here's the solution. We're gonna redefine what exercise means for a cancer survivor. Because as a cancer survivor, you need to be strategic about what types of exercise and how often you're doing it so you can truly lower your risk of a cancer recurrence. Let's get into exactly what this looks like right here. There are a few very simple ways to start that are not gonna be exhausting and they're not gonna take a lot of time. I'm also gonna include a movement at the end, which is probably gonna surprise you. Most people don't think about adding this level of protection for cancer survivors, but this particular movement is key. So hang on until the end for that. To get started, let's put one foot in front of the other, and that actually leads me to my first exercise that you should be focusing on in 2023. Walking is proven to reduce your risk of a cancer recurrence. The literature has added up over the last decade, and it has shown that if you aim for 150 minutes of low intensity cardio each week, so something like walking, then you can reduce your risk of a cancer recurrence. But in December of 2022, there was big news. Now we have even more research to prove that walking can actually help prevent your cancer from coming back. This is exactly why I'm putting walking at the top of my list of exercises that you should be doing as a cancer survivor in 2023. On December 7th, 2022, the Nurses' Health Study published again. This time, they showed that by using targeted exercise like walking, you can actually lower your risk of a cancer recurrence and death. Yes, I know you want that, so let's get into the details of exactly what you need to do to get this benefit. The study found that if you walk for 1 to 3 hours per week, you'll lower your risk of a cancer recurrence and lower your risk of death. Just walking is gonna make this difference in your risk of a cancer recurrence. So it's simple. Get out and walk. If you are nowhere close to walking 1 to 3 hours a week, then here's how you start. To build up your cardio, I want you to start by actually tracking your steps. Before we change anything, I wanna know where you are right now in terms of your movement. If you have an iPhone, it's already tracking your steps on the Health app. If you don't really carry your phone or you don't have an iPhone, then no problem. Let's just start by tracking your steps for 7 days. There are loads of step trackers available that are quite inexpensive and you can easily get. Once you've tracked your steps for 7 days, I want you to find the average number of steps you take each day. Now, we set a new step goal for the upcoming week. Your goal for the upcoming week is to walk your average number of steps plus an additional 500 steps every day. For example, if your average daily step count was 4,500 steps, now you're gonna add 500 to that, and so your goal every day will be to walk 5,000 steps. We're not gonna make radical changes here because we simply don't need to in order to reduce your risk of your cancer from coming back. These small changes over time form habits, and that's what's going to lower your risk of cancer. The first exercise I want you to focus on in 2023 is walking, but now we need to switch to focusing on strength training. Here's exactly how you do that. For many women, strength training is likely something you've never done before. If that's you, then don't stress. I'm gonna start simple and walk you through step by step. Before I was diagnosed with cancer, I was a competitive strength athlete. I competed on Team Canada and I was a North American champion. It was actually at the same time that I was competing on Team Canada that I was also completing my doctorate in cancer care. It was actually these two things that set me up for success in my own cancer recovery and to help women just like you recover from cancer as well. A breast cancer thriver that I work with had never done strength training before in her life. She was really anxious about getting started with strength training because she had never done these movements before in her life. It made her really anxious to try to do them at the gym because it felt like just everyone was watching her. And she had spent her entire life either walking or being on the treadmill for cardio, and strength training just didn't seem to fit. On top of all this, she was really struggling with exhaustion. She was so tired. She just could not find the motivation to start walking and definitely couldn't find the motivation to run. So she didn't want to figure out a whole new strength training exercise exercise routine. She just did not have the motivation for that. So I walked her through the exact movements I'm gonna show you here. You know how I mentioned that she struggled with exhaustion? Well, when I used this routine with aligning her nutrition, her exhaustion was gone within 3 weeks. She was back up to her normal energy levels. You can do this too. We're gonna start very simple here. We're gonna start with body weight squats. Squats are a great exercise to help prevent a cancer recurrence. We want movements that will work all the major muscle groups in your body. Squats are often thought of as a movement that just works out your legs, but there's so much more than that. To stabilize yourself in order to complete the movement, you actually need to work your core as well. So the squat actually is a whole body movement. Let me show you how to do a body weight squat safely and properly. If you're finding that you're having a difficult time keeping your balance for this movement, then hang on to the back of a chair or to a wall. Eventually, with practice and time, your stability will improve and you'll be able to do this movement unassisted. We're starting this movement with your hips. Start by driving your hips or your butt back and then descending down. Now, when you're completing this movement, you wanna make sure you're doing so in a slow and controlled way. This is actually what makes this movement ideal for cancer survivors. If we ensure we're doing the movement properly and in a slow and controlled way, then this will minimize your risk of injury while keeping your body fit and healthy. This movement works out your butt, your legs, but also your core. So while you're doing this movement, make sure to tighten your core to stabilize you as you go down. Now, we need to be particular here about what movements we select in order to actually reduce your risk of a cancer recurrence. The type of movements you do really do matter in terms of lowering that risk of cancer. We want to hit all major muscle groups. So the legs, the butt, the core, these are all good places to start. So let's do another exercise here that also focuses on these same major muscle groups. The next movement you need to be doing heading into 2023 to help stay in remission is the walking lunge. Again, the walking lunge is gonna focus on your legs, butt, and core. So this makes it a perfect movement for cancer survivors. Just like the squat, you can use the back of a chair or a wall to stabilize yourself while you're completing this movement. What we wanna do here is step forward, either hands on your hips or hands out to the sides for stability. Lower your back knee to the ground until it's hovering just above the floor or touching the floor. Then come back up. Continue this movement on the alternate side in a slow and controlled way. This movement is the best for building lean muscle and strength. If you're struggling to keep your balance, do not worry about having to hold on to something. You're still gonna get the benefit of reducing your risk of a cancer recurrence, even if you're holding on to something for stability, so go ahead. Now, let's move on to a movement that works your core. A plank is a great movement to work your core, but it also works other major muscle groups in your body. It's also very simple to complete. If you're struggling with belly fat, then this is also a movement that you should be focusing on. After cancer treatment, many women are in a forced menopause or a medical menopause state. As a result, you start to carry fat in different areas of your body because of the hormonal imbalances. The result is often belly fat. Of course, nutrition plays a big role in minimizing belly fat, but focusing on movements that strengthen your core will help as well. Ideally, we want to work our way up to a full plank from our feet. But the key is that you need to work up to this. There are a number of ways to modify a plank. Start at your knees and hold the movement for a very short amount of time. Even if you start with just 10 seconds, you're still working those muscles and lowering your risk of a cancer recurrence. The way that you can make this movement so adaptable, you can literally complete this movement in front of the TV. That's what makes this exercise movement one of my top exercises that you should be focusing on in 2023 as a cancer survivor. Now, let's focus on your arms. For these next couple of movements, you'll need a resistance band. Resistance bands are very inexpensive and compact. You can also adjust how much resistance you use off the band as you progress on this movement. Below, I've included a link to a resistance band that I think would be a great place for you to start with these movements. You can place the band on something around belly button height or higher. We're gonna be moving the band in a downward direction, so you're gonna need a little bit of room. Next, you're gonna adjust where you're holding the band to give you the right amount of tension or resistance. You want enough resistance so the movement is challenging, but you can still complete it. You're aiming to do about 8 reps of this movement, so you want to adjust the tension so that by the last rep, your muscles are getting a bit tired. Holding the band with both hands, I want you to move it in a downward direction. You should feel the back of your arm or your tricep working here. The next movement is a lateral raise. This will actually focus on working muscles in your back and in your shoulders. Another key muscle group to help lower your risk of recurrence. With the lateral raise, you want to focus focus on keeping your shoulders down, back, and together. Think about trying to pinch a pencil between your shoulder blades. Then, while standing on the band with your feet, I want you to grab the band with your hands and slowly raise them up and outwards to the sides of your body. Keep it slow and controlled. And again, I want you to have an amount of resistance so that your arms and shoulders are getting fatigued by about 8 reps. Now, this next movement is really gonna surprise you. Hardly anyone is talking about this, but this movement is key in terms of reducing your risk of a cancer recurrence, but also keeping your bones healthy. Plus, it's so easy to do. Skipping. Many medications we take to reduce our risk of a cancer recurrence actually negatively impact our bones. You absolutely do not want to end up in a position where you have osteopenia and your bones are brittle. So we want to do movements to prevent this. To do this, you need to do movements with impact. Movements that will have impact on your bones in multiple different directions. These types of movements strengthen your bones in case of a fall, and as a result, it prevents any breaks or damage. Skipping is perfect for this. But look, exercise is just one way to reduce your risk of a cancer recurrence. If you're really serious about reducing your risk of a cancer recurrence, then you have got to think about your nutrition. That's why I've linked up this next video here. So let's get into it and get your nutrition all aligned and set up. I'll see you in there.